Welcome back to another exciting episode of LA Fishguys. This is the tank that we put the vortex pumps on to try to create some additional water movement in the tank. You can see not all the algae's gone. This wasn't a solution to an algae problem, it's just a way of minimizing it. But you can see there's a lot of that algae that's not in there this time. It's most likely the results of the fact that the water's now moving around in there so much more that it's sweeping those debris away, and that algae isn't getting a foothold or finding those fertile little valleys any longer. So we still need to service the tank, but in looking in here, we don't see those little pockets of algae that we did 2 weeks ago when we were here last time and installed the vortex units. Yes, there is some algae that's still growing in the tank, but I think today we can easily clean up most of that. But I think in the long run, the fact that we are moving a lot more water inside the tank, again, that debris is not getting a chance to settle and develop into a fertile little pocket that's going to feed an algae problem. So we need to service the tank, and I'll do that quickly, but I brought along the printout from the website on how to set these units up. There's many different styles of flow, and that's really what we're here to do today, is to get that vortex unit set up so it does some of those pre-programmed nifty things.
We'll start today's aquarium service by going through the access door in the front of the aquarium, lifting off the lids off the top of the tank. Because of the surge makers, there is an abundance of salt mist or salt spray that collects on the top of the tank. This is the first thing that we're going to have to clean out. We can then get inside the tank and begin to clean the algae from the interior. Oh yeah, and that's how we clean the interior of the acrylic 150-gallon tank. And now it's time to work on the water change portion. This particular system, we want to put the new water in advance. The system won't allow us to take out 20 gallons without shutting it down, and we'd really rather not shut it down. So here, we're able to pour that 20 gallons of new salt water into the third reservoir. This third reservoir will be used to pump into the first two reservoirs. So this unique reservoir system back here consists of 3 large 35-gallon containers, would be the polite word to use. The third one essentially is an overflow for the first 2, and it serves as a point where we can pour the water into, and then pump it into the system. Now, I noticed today that our protein skimmer is not doing a very good job aerating. There must be some sort of blockage in there because there should be a cylinder full of frothy air bubbles, and there isn't. And I don't know how well you can see this, but this is what we found on the inlet side of the water pump, which was restricting the water, which in turn reduces the air that goes into the protein skimmer. You can see it's significantly improved as far as the amount of aeration. It's too bad, though, that over the last 2 weeks it didn't get a chance to do much of a job. I wanted to also show you this protein skimmer sits in a little tray that sits inside the large container, and it receives water directly from the overflow from the aquarium. So the protein skimmer is in a position where it's able to deal directly with the organics coming straight from the tank. That tray, again, is just elevated inside a large reservoir, and the excess just spills over into the reservoir itself, where at some point the water pump down here picks it up and sends it back into the tank.
But that's a significant improvement in the protein skimmer just from that little granule of debris, which might be one of the downsides to this unit receiving water directly from the aquarium. So you have to decide which is going to benefit you more. Now that we've got the reservoir filled up, we can go ahead and vacuum the debris out of the tank. Some of you might question why I'm going to vacuum the live sand. It's because it's no longer live. We replaced it a few episodes back. We're also of the thinking that live sand beds eventually just hold on to too much debris, and that in turn becomes part of the algae problem. So we're going to, on a regular basis, vacuum this sand bed just to keep it clean and free of debris.
So in addition to a few other small things such as checking the salinity or changing the activated carbon, that takes care of the servicing of a 150-gallon coral reef tank. We've just changed 20 gallons of water, cleaned the interior of the tank, and vacuumed the gravel, or in this case the sand, at the bottom of the tank. Now it's time to see if we can get those Vortec units programmed. So being totally new and quite naive to not only this type of a system or these pumps, but this type of programming, I probably should have left the settings alone, as they were previously set for a similar sized tank. But I felt it was important to kind of learn from the ground up, and that starts with clearing the memory out of the system. There's a procedure outlined off the website that talks about clearing the memory and then redefining which one of the units is what's called the slave and which one of the units is called the master. One controls the other, obviously. There's a particular procedure here that you go through, a series of holding buttons down, dual buttons, single buttons, a tap of a button. It's an interpretation quite often based literally on the words used to describe the procedure. Well, I wasn't having a whole lot of fun and was starting to get frustrated. So we've been screwing around for a little while, about 20 minutes on these directions. We had to first clear the memory. The second thing we needed to do was to define which was the master and which was the slave unit. I think I've got those figured out now. I just need to try to figure out how to get them into the modes that we want to get them into. I kind of hate to say it, for as nifty as these little gizmos are, they're about as simple as programming a VCR. Which really isn't always that simple. So I'm not going to waste your time videotaping me trying to figure it out. I'm just going to try to get it done, and then I'll show you the results. So I gotta be honest with you, frustration has turned into irritation. I can't seem to get the things figured out. Like I said earlier, it's about as simple as programming a VCR, and we all know what success people have doing that. I'm going to have to do a little bit more reading, a little bit more question asking to try to get the answer figured out. I do think that we've gotten some increased water flow, some random water flow in the tank, and that's really helped not so much eliminate the algae problem, but decrease the areas where those algae would find fertile little pockets. So as I explore a little bit further as to how to program these units, what you want to do is look at other means of creating additional water movement in the tank. And as always, keep moving forward.